What's up? My name is Corey, and this is how I got my first professional position outside of college. So I graduated in spring 2020, right when COVID started. I was studying psychology, and I was actually planning to do personal training straight out of college and combine my knowledge with psychology and my interest in fitness and help people at a gym. All of that got wiped away. All the gyms were closed during COVID, and I did a little bit of online training on the side and stuff, but I was generally lost in life. I worked at my family restaurant during the summer to help out to get some extra money, and I think this is the first time that I tried to start YouTube actually. A couple of my family members had some serious health issues, and I just felt very lost and depressed in life. I ended up getting a part-time job at a local Under Armour, and I stayed there for about a year and a half before I really started taking serious the job hunt. I was so intimidated by it, I didn't feel like I was qualified for anything. People were always like, you can't do anything with a bachelor's degree, or especially with a bachelor's in psychology. I had people waiting for me to get a PhD and become a doctor, which was not in the plan. It wasn't until my best friend at the time notified me that one of my previous employers at the university that we both went to was leaving her position, and that I would be able to apply for this job. It was then that this goal to get away from Under Armour and part-time work seemed very reachable. I was also doing DoorDash and Instacart at the time, so I was just running around everywhere, using my time for money, and I was just very exhausted and just ready to go, but I just didn't know where to start. So her telling me about this was a great place for me to segue into me realizing that I wanted to get back into higher education. I had a couple jobs on campus when I was in college, and I really enjoyed it, and I did kind of want to get into student affairs. So I went to apply for the position that my previous employer was leaving, and it motivated me to look at not only other jobs at the college that I went to, but other higher education opportunities in the area. So I live in DC. There's a bunch of schools, a bunch of good schools at that too, that had different types of positions opening. I didn't really know what I was qualified for, but I started getting the confidence to want to look and feeling like I could actually get a position. It was here that I transferred from looking at positions very casually and passively on Indeed to going directly on the websites of the employers that I wanted to work for. So in this case, it would have been the colleges I wanted to work at. Creating an account on the careers website, actually saving the jobs and looking through the information, and creating cover letters. This was my biggest hurdle. I just was being lazy and didn't want to create a cover letter, but also didn't feel like I was going to create something that was good enough to get the position. I ended up creating a goal to complete at least one application a day, and to do this, I created 2 general cover letters for entry-level positions, as well as 2 resumes that would just need some minor tweaks to be specific enough for the specific universities and the specific job descriptions that I was seeing. I feel like this is even like a mindset thing. Like when you have to make a cover letter for a job, you're taking the process more serious, as opposed to if Indeed you can just submit something very willy-nilly. So in these cover letters and resumes, I started learning what I needed to highlight, and I was also learning how to articulate my skills in a more professional manner. And I also realized that I had more skills than I even thought about at first. Another thing that I did was to look at my previous experience and look at jobs that would match that experience. So it was kind of vice versa in some ways. Like typically I feel like you'll look at a job that you want and then create the resume or move around stuff on your resume based on that. But I looked at my resume first and went out looking for jobs that would match that experience. How I maintained this routine was I became a spreadsheet whore. Yes, every day I was finding potential jobs, adding it to a spreadsheet, and I created a bunch of various columns, including the institution that had the job, the different job listings I was interested in at that institution, what was the hourly wage, what was the annual salary, what was the work designation, so did I have remote options or did I have to be on the campus full-time, how long was the commute, and what were the reviews of the university. I also put the submission date so I knew which applications to focus on first. I want to say I ended up filling out about 10 or 15 applications before I started hearing back. Some people wanted nothing to do with me, and that was fine. And I actually only ended up going on 2 interviews for George Washington University, which is where I work now, and Georgetown University. The interviews were for very similar positions, both doing entry-level admin and faculty support, and they were also paying about the same. The only difference was one of the positions was a 3-2 work schedule, I believe, so 3 days in the office, 2 days remote, and the other one was full-time on campus. I, of course, ended up picking GW because I felt like my values and my comfort aligned more with the person I was interviewing and the department I was going to be working for. And I do not regret the decision at all because I was able to promote within 9 months. Some other advice I want to give on this topic is you are probably much more capable than you give yourself credit for. Just having a bachelor's degree is not a thing. A lot of employers, especially with entry-level positions, just want to see that you were able to commit something and complete, whether it be some certifications, a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree, depending on the institution, of course. But they just want to see that you were able to complete it. That already shows a certain amount of work effort. Might not be the job that you want, but it could get you in the door to something. Employers want competent and pleasant people to work with. So if you can articulate this in a cover letter and especially hype it up during your interview, then you have a good chance of getting the job. They're thinking about, can you do the job, and am I gonna want to be around you all the time when I'm having to either make requests or, whatever the job is. You need to be confident in your skills and submit applications even when you don't think you're qualified. Employers will put a whole bunch of stuff in a job description just to scare certain people away. I say always apply. The position I originally applied for is actually the position I have now. Like I said, I got promoted after a certain amount of time, but I started out with the entry-level position. So I still applied for this position I have currently, which I was not on paper, quote-unquote, qualified for. But the employer liked reading my cover letter and we had a good rapport, so she was like, well, I don't think that you're ready for this position now, but we have another option for you that you can start out with. And the other piece of advice that I feel is the most valuable thing that I have ever heard from someone, like one of the faculty members that I work with, is let them tell you no before you tell yourself no. And until that employer tells you no, then there is still a possibility. If they're talking to you, then there's something that they like about you. And at the very least, they could be a connection to another position. Remember to have standards. You're interviewing them as well. Ask proper questions and see if this is going to be something that you actually want. Don't just take a job because of the money. So yeah, that's how I got my first professional position out of college. This was, as mentioned, about 2 years after I actually graduated from college. Those skills are not just fading away and going into dust. Leverage them, learn how to articulate them, and get that first position, get your foot in the door, and then be optimistic about where you can go next. So I hope you enjoyed that video and it was beneficial for you, and I hope you have a great day.